In 1785, a tired messenger brought the 73-year-old Qing Emperor Qianlong 2 pieces of Imperial Jadeite Jade, Fei Choi, from what is now known as Myanmar, as a result of a peace pact that ended a gruesome war between China and the region on the other side of the Kachin Hills, then known as Vientiane. Tens of thousands of men had been killed in a psychotic pursuit under the guise of revenge for the beheading of Chinese citizens. Those 2 rough jade stones symbolize a pivotal moment in Chinese history because that was the start of trade between China and Burma, allowing for the import of Burmese jadeite jade into China, eventually gaining popularity with the Chinese people, becoming a crucial part of their culture today. This video will tell the incredible story of the stone Qianlong himself called a treasure among treasures. I know what you're thinking. Jordan, you are wrong. China has had jade for thousands of years, and you are correct. There are 2 gemstones that we gemologically call jade in the USA today: nephrite jade and jadeite jade. Jade is an English word, and it's sort of a trade term since it doesn't refer to one specific gemstone. To add to the confusion, prior to gemological testing, ancient China considered 4 distinctly different gemstones to be jade, which they called yu, before they were even introduced to jadeite jade. And in modern times, the relatively new English word jade has become a translation of the word yu, which means beautiful stone in Chinese. This means that some Chinese sellers, without necessarily intending to be misleading, may refer to non-jade stones as jade, such as quartz, serpentine, grossularite garnet, etc., which have completely different characteristics from jade, for instance, being much easier to break than the real jades. I know it's super confusing, but stay with me. Under the jade category, you have nephrite jade and jadeite jade, and under the jadeite jade category, you have natural and you have treated. Quartz, serpentine, grossular garnet, thulite, mossitsit, and every other gemstone on the planet is not jade. The jade of ancient China is called nephrite jade today, and archaeologists have found jade in ancient tombs going back to Neolithic times. So yeah, it goes way back. But the hunt for jadeite jade in China began relatively recently, during the Qing dynasty under the reign of the earlier mentioned Qianlong, following the devastating loss of his wife Fuka. His grief turned into a dangerous obsession with jade, driving him to madness as he slept in a jade bed, combed his hair with a jade brush, ate out of jade plates and bowls, etched poetry into jade artifacts, like really priceless ones too. And oh yeah, launched a military campaign to reincorporate Western regions into China's territory just so he would have access to the nephrite jade mines, like in Hotan, in that region, and their respective trade routes. Normal stuff, just emperors being emperors. So he scoops up a bunch of nephrite jade in Hotan, and of course it's not enough, because remember, he's crazy. So he's in the library one day, and he comes across writing of the rarest jade in all of the world. A fantastical green stone, quite different from Confucius's waxy jade, that appears to glow as if lit by a flame. And of course Qianlong's like, well, I have to have that. The writer calls it Fei Choi, which is a kingfisher bird native to the Guangxi province because of its color. But the stone itself is not from Guangxi. So where is it? Qianlong read book after book, trying to find out where this mysterious Fei Choi came from, and finally learned of its source in what is modern-day Myanmar. And that was when he started sending troops. Tens of thousands, then tens of thousands more, then more, and more. Not successfully, by the way, until Mian finally said, okay, stop, what if we open up trade instead? Changing China's relationship with jade forever. Now, jadeite jade didn't exactly hit the market and become the 18th century's biggest fad. There's more to the story, but we'll get back to that in a minute. If you've already learned something you didn't know before, please smash that like button. And if you're wanting to shop for natural jadeite jade yourself, be sure to check out Mason-Kay Jade at mkjjewelry.com and use the discount code JOT for 10% off. We actually have a ton of videos collaborating with Mason-Kay, so I'm gonna link to that playlist below so that you can get a feel for the company and see a variety of their products. While Qianlong was throwing an international temper tantrum, the history of jadeite jade in Guatemala was already long buried and gone. Guatemalan jadeite jade may be lesser known in the United States because it is newer to the American market, but it actually has a long history. Possibly as old as the history of nephrite jade in China, at the very least going back to 1500 BC as far as we know. Ancient Mesoamerican civilizations used jadeite jade in the form of tools, weaponry, kitchen utensils, jewelry, burial practices, the list goes on and on and on. Jade was the highest revered material to the Olmec, the Maya, the Aztec, as well as at least 4 other Mesoamerican civilizations that we know of. The use of jade in Mesoamerica goes back thousands of years, and archaeologists aren't entirely certain of when it began, but they do know when it ended. You've heard of the Spanish conquest, right? In the 1500s, Spanish explorers came to the Aztec Empire to colonize the Americas. Drama ensued for years to come, of course, but notably, the Spanish took lots of gold and other treasures back to Europe, pearls among them. To give you a perspective on what jade meant to the Aztec people, Montezuma, the leader of the Aztec Empire, was famously relieved that the Spanish took gold instead of jade. Whew! Thank goodness they didn't get the jade. Sound familiar? The Chinese have a saying, gold is valuable, but jade is priceless. It appears that the Aztecs felt the same way. Under Spanish rule, the jade trade was forbidden and soon forgotten. So forgotten that by the time the 1970s rolled around, archaeologists were laughed at for even believing there could possibly be jade in Guatemala. Ha ha, joke's on them. One of those archaeologists was Mary Lou Johnson, who befriended the tenacious Jay Ridinger in the pursuit of Guatemalan jade. Using William Foshag's research, their own hypotheses, and their walking boots, Jay and Mary Lou wandered the Motagua River region with geologist hammers, tapping boulders, and listening for the distinct ping of jade stone. And of course, along this journey, the two fell in love. They did, in fact, rediscover the lost jade of Guatemala and opened up Jade Maya, a company which still sells Guatemalan jade today under the leadership of Mary Lou Ridinger, carrying on the legacy of the late Jay Ridinger. If you'd like to learn more about Guatemalan jade, we have some in-depth videos and book recommendations, which I'm going to link to below. I also want to take a moment to tell you about the Monterey Bay Jade Festival, where you can find Guatemalan jade, the largest jade event in the United States, which takes place every June in California. Over 50 jade vendors get together just 45 minutes away from Big Sur, a famous source of alluvial jade, for a weekend of jade, seafood, and ocean views. Be sure to check out the link in the description to learn more. So yes, there is a jade festival in America. Actually, there are multiple. But how did the Burmese jadeite jade beloved by Chinese nobility ever make it to the USA? The answer begins with the Dowager Empress Cixi. I could do multiple videos on the Dowager Empress, as her story is pretty mind-blowing and well told by the author Young Chang. Link below. Brought into the emperor's harem as a teenager, the consort who would one day be known as Cixi didn't originally get much attention from her Emperor Qianlong, until she became pregnant and gave him a son in 1856. This raised her up the ranks to become second only to the Empress, and when Emperor Qianlong died, at only 30 years old, Cixi's son became emperor, giving leadership to the regents assigned to his aid. That didn't last very long. After overthrowing their power in a relatively peaceful coup, Cixi ruled China for nearly 50 years, making her one of the final rulers of the Qing dynasty. The Dowager Empress Cixi should be credited with modernizing China by instituting the railroad, bringing electricity to rural China, officially doing away with Han foot binding, and opening up international trade by regulating currency, creating trade routes, and starting modern bureaucratic relations with European nations. But China was a bit of a hot mess under her rule, as she was thrown into the unstable politics of a failing dynasty and anti-Western sentiment that eventually led to multiple rebellions. The famous Boxer Rebellion consisted of Chinese citizens killing European Christians, which the Chinese government could not put down. This invited an invasion by multiple European countries, who made their way to the royal palace in Peking. The Dowager Empress Cixi loved Pekingese dogs, the sweet smell of apples, and jadeite jade. By the time of Cixi's reign, trade between China and Burma had been going on for some time. So unlike the rulers before her, her palace had fei choi, jadeite jade, jade hairpins, jade bangles, you name it. She even hung a piece of jade on her mirror and licked it every day. So when foreign invaders looted her palace, many of the artifacts they took were jade. And a lot of these jades found their way to Europe and even the United States, along with silks, pottery, and art that sparked an American interest in the previously mysterious Chinese culture. China obviously went through some drama since then. The 1911 revolution led to the fall of the Qing dynasty and the establishment of the Republic of China. Opposing the ROC eventually was Mao Zedong, whose rise to power and subsequent role in the Chinese Civil War made him the leader of Communist China after Chiang Kai-shek and the nationalists were banished to Taiwan. Under Mao's rule, the Communist Party confiscated and banned the trade of jade, as it was seen as a symbol of wealth in Chinese culture. And of course, millions of Chinese people starved to death because of his tyranny. He was a bad guy. Sadly, the Chinese government destroyed many Chinese artifacts, including jade, as an attack on China's cultural heritage and the spirit of the people. But things started to change in the 70s and 80s as strict policies began to relax and trade began to open up between China and the rest of the world. Even China found that the economic benefits of the jade trade were impossible to deny. The Chinese people were reunited with this aspect of their culture, and international interest in jade and Chinese art surged. In this sense, you could say jade represented a newfound freedom and the resilience of the Chinese people. The incredible stories surrounding jade are preserved in books by authors such as Gerard Helfrich, Richard Gump, Adrian Levy and Kathy Scott Clark, and Fred Ward. I recommend every single one of them and will include links below.